My name is Roma. This is Zimlove, a podcast about Zimbabwe. Here I'm sharing interesting stories through people that I've met and want to show you a side of this country that an internet search cannot. Enjoy.
The first year we produced 250 kilograms of baobab powder. So this is what you can buy nowadays in the shops. And so now we do 250 tons. So it is only the sign behind the figure has changed. The figure stayed the same.
Welcome to this new episode of Zimlove. My guest today is Dominik. Dominik is a friend that I met at a party a couple years ago. And he is also a businessman from Germany that has been living in Zimbabwe for 25 years.
Oh!
I just made that up.
You totally made that up. It's 19 years and 8 days.
Okay.
Thank you, Roma.
Thank you. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Dominik. And so the first time that I came to Zimbabwe was after my apprenticeship as an organic farmer. I did an apprenticeship in Germany where I grew up. I then hitchhiked from Cologne, where the farm was, to Cape Town. So I came through Zimbabwe because that's on the way in between Cologne and...
I didn't even know that you hitchhiked.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so there I...
And people took you with your thumbs out all across Africa.
All across. So the first guy that was in Cologne, at the Autobahn there, the highway, the first guy stopped and I had a sign on Frankfurt, which is south of Cologne. And he said, I will not go to Frankfurt, I go to... but I can let you out there. I will continue to Munich. And I said, oh, that's brilliant because I want to go to Cape Town anyhow. So I will come with you to Munich. And of course, he never believed me. Yeah. And sadly, his telephone number was, later on, I lost it. It was stolen. So I could never tell him that I finally arrived. It might be that he will listen to this podcast of yours and then remember, that was the guy. So he arrived.
So you came the first time, and then what happened then?
The reality is it was a beautiful country. And I immediately fell in love with this country. And then later on, I fell in love with a daughter of this country, and I married her. And I then stayed here, or went back for 10, 15, many years, and traveled the world, worked internationally, and then decided in 2006 to come to Zimbabwe and to start what I do now. And so that's 19 years now, and beautiful, wonderful, very happy to be in Zimbabwe. Thank you for Zimlove. I love every of your stories here.
Episodes. Thank you for the feedback.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
And then you came back, and then what are you doing here, Dominik?
When traveling through Africa, as a young human being after your apprenticeship, and I then didn't really know much about the world, of course, and however, because I hitchhiked, so I was very close to people on the ground, and often I simply walked. And so there, the one thing is that if you hitchhike, when you walk, you are often in rural areas. Often when you travel, you go from towns to historical places, etc. There, because I wanted to travel the whole of Africa by foot or by car without having a car. And I was very close in close contact with the rural people, and I learned appreciating them and realized that there is so much potential to work with them. And so that was my idea, 2006. It developed over years, of course. And then in 2007, we moved here to Zimbabwe, and then I simply started. And I don't know, I didn't tell you this story. How I started, when when I arrived here on the 2nd of March 2006, I arrived here without my luggage. So the luggage was lost. So I had to go back to the airport the next day, and it was still not there. And then the next day. And then during this time, of course, the telephone system in Zimbabwe didn't really work. So I had to always go physically there. This was the time where in Zimbabwe, that was just after what they called the Operation Murabachina. That was a cleanup operation where houses were bulldozed around the airport as well. And so there people were in their tents, blue tents from the United Nations. And in between these blue tents was strong smelling weed. So then I thought whatever smells can be distilled, which is true. And whatever smells can then be, used in some form of application. And this herb had a very intensive smell, and this flowers this time of the year. I then simply worked with these guys, and they started harvesting it, and I then started distilling it. And a year later, I was at a fair in Europe. And this plant, which we distilled, I then later on learned was called Tagetes minuta. And I then learned later on that it was a weed brought to Zimbabwe 120 years ago from Latin America, where polo players here in Zimbabwe brought hay from Latin America, from Argentina. And in this hay, there was this seed of this Tagetes minuta, and it is now a weed everywhere here in Zimbabwe. And so I then a year later, that was in February 2008, I was at a fair, and there were two French men in front of me, and they talked about Taget. And I thought that, it might be that they talk about Tagetes minuta. And I told them that I had some liter or 2 or 3 at home. And they were totally delighted. They were from a big cosmetic company, one of the big brands producing a perfume. And they bought the oil. And we now have a mobile distillation unit where we go with this unit to the different areas and distill this weed. That's how I started.
Wow. What a story, of course, whole from the beginning to the end.
And it is a horrible smell. However, this perfume experts, they really know what they're doing, and they can mix horrible smells and a beautiful thing comes out. How they do it is a total mystery to me.
It's pure magic.
Absolutely stunning.
Okay, yeah. Nice. The main thing now is another fabulous product. That is the superfood in Germany right now.
It's the Baobab.
Yeah. Let's say it again.
Baobab. Yeah. Baobab originates, of course, from here. Yeah. And it's in Zimbabwe, in this area now for 2 million years. So we can't imagine. I mean,
that's a very long time.
Dinosaurs running around. And So, and here there are areas where the temperature had, in fact, changed by more than 18 degrees between when Baobab started here and still here. So there were massive climate changes. Yeah, it was much hotter and much cooler than today. And still the Baobab survived here. So that is the one good news today. We don't need to worry about the Baobab tree with all climate change and whatever. The Baobab tree will survive. It's more that we can worry about us. And however, the Baobab tree, 2 million years here in this area, and was always used by humans, of course. Yeah. So our ancestors always used it in various forms. In fact, we humans can use the Baobab tree in, I think, 72 different ways. So the most stunning thing, which I really like, is the root of this small Baobab tree. So when the Baobab tree is kind of this high, then it has a long taproot, and the taste is the taste of horseradish. Yeah, okay. it's so amazing. It's very strong, and you get this tickling thing in your nose when you bite into it,
like ginger.
Yeah,
or like horseradish.
Horseradish, yeah, and so this is something which is, of course, has lots of healing properties. We can use the bark, the leaves, the flowers. We can use absolutely every bit of the tree. The interesting thing about the baobab tree is that we cannot use it when it's cut down. There's nothing we humans can use when the tree falls over or is cut down.
Yeah, because it's not made out of wood.
Yeah,
right?
It's not a woody plant. It's a
like
succulent.
It's succulent. So it's like mishmash yum, 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 mud.
Yes.
So it's a succulent. It's like a
sponge,
like a cactus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it's a really interesting plant, and we. And this is, wherever you drive through Africa, and it is if you are in areas below 900 meters, yeah, so not here in the highlands, you don't find baobab trees, but below 900 meters altitude and dry, arid, that is where you find baobab trees everywhere.
The so-called lowveld.
Lowveld. Here in southern Africa, you call it lowveld, yeah, and so you, in the end, have to be in areas where the soil is poor, rainfall is poor and erratic. It's hot and sometimes it's cold. So it's the most
unattractive living conditions,
exactly.
And the baobab loves it.
That is where the baobab thrives, yeah. And so when starting here, and we started with the Tajid there at the airport, so 2007 I came in, 2008 was the year that I then started producing baobab. The first year we produced 250 kilograms of baobab powder. So this is what you can buy nowadays in the shops. And so now we do 250 tons.
Wow.
So it is only the sign behind the figure has changed. The figure stayed the same. And so we work with more than 3,000 families. Yeah, and this is beautiful because this what we do is the baobab tree starts flowering towards the end of the dry season. So when it gets hot, October, November, then end of November, beginning of December, it starts it starts raining here in Zimbabwe, and it flowers October, November, December. For 3 months, the trees flower. So some flower in the beginning of October, some flower in November, some by the end of December. But you always find trees flowering during these 3 months. However, every single flower flowers only for 12 hours. So they open around 5 in the afternoon, and the next morning at 5 or before 6, the flower drops. So this is the night where either bats or moth need to come and propagate. Very different from the in Japan you have like feasts for weeks where the cherries flower. Yeah, because they flower for weeks. Yeah, and the baobab tree, the flower, beautiful flower, quite big.
So precious. So
for
precious.
One night. You will never see. You have to be up at night to see a fresh flower.
Nice. And what I think so interesting is with the superfoods is that, when you want to get baobab powder here, you just go to Spar, to any regular supermarket. You can really find it. It's not expensive. It's like a really basic thing here to have. People use it for how I know, mainly maybe cooking porridge, like using it when they make porridge. And then in Germany, it's like this new thing and this fancy packaging. And first it was in the so-called Reformhaus, like special ecological shops. And now it's making its way into like the almost the 7-Eleven of Germany. You can get it everywhere, but it's something so precious and also more expensive. And here it is, as far as I know, it's been so common.
Yes,
Yeah.
Very common. On the other hand, Roma, when I came here to Zimbabwe, there was not a single product in the shops. No, there was not one baobab product in the shops. And so that was something which I thought, when I tasted the baobab, I thought, it has an interesting taste, and then we got it analyzed, and we realized it's quite healthy. Very high in vitamin C, in kalium, in calcium, and there is a lot of health benefits. It has more dietary fiber than any other fruit. So therefore, when you consume baobab, like have a spoon of baobab in your porridge or your muesli or your smoothie or whatever in the morning, and you then have a Coke or a piece of chocolate or something sweet during the day, normally your insulin level spikes when you eat something sweet because of the sugar. And when you have a spoon of baobab in the morning, then this insulin level spike doesn't happen. So it can therefore help against diabetes too, which is really cool and often not known and really helpful. And then, of course, it has 7 times more vitamin C than oranges, and it is all in all a very healthy product. Has more antioxidants, I think, than any other product. It's healthy, and the other thing is it's an underutilized resource. So there was no product on earth in any supermarket, to the best of my knowledge, 20 years ago. And now here in Zimbabwe, there are lots of different products, and internationally it's really growing as well. And the nice thing is that it was an underutilized resource. So when you use teak to build a table, you chop down the tree. However, when you harvest the baobab fruit drops. So the harvesters go towards the baobab tree and pick up the fruit and put the fruit into a bag. So there is absolutely no damage. So the only thing is that you remove the fruit and then process the fruit. However, we then have nurseries, we plant trees, etc. So now we have more trees because of harvesting of baobab, because we replant, than we had before. Because we now transplant, and in the past, of course, this wasn't.
And you said that, I think I remember you told me until the baobab has fruit, it's like 70 years. Like it's a very long time, So you can't really do it for yourself.
You can't do it for yourself. So when we plant the trees, we know that this will take, in average, in the wild here in Zimbabwe, more than 70 years before it starts flowering. And so you often have old trees here. The interesting thing is trees are often either 250 years old or 500 years old or 750 years old or 1,000 years old.
Do you maybe think there are some climate conditions in between that were not ideal? Or?
So that is the interesting thing about the baobab trees, as many other African indigenous species. We really don't know much about it. So there were altogether, I think, 6 or 7 PhD theses written about the baobab trees, very few. And so there is the knowledge we have about the baobab tree is very limited. And so there is still a lot of research needed before we can really enter into, So, however, we have counted the trees. So, when you harvest, you want to know what's the ecological effect. You can't just go into the wild, take something out, walk off, and then you have removed it from the wild. So we did our impact study in the very beginning, and so we counted the trees, and we stopped counting in the communal areas after 4 million trees. So the natural resource is massive. So a lot is available, and it's a resource which was always used to a very small extent, and often the fruit simply rotted. By the way, the interesting thing, one research has shown that the baobab trees are mainly in areas where there were in the past elephants. And so what happened is that the elephant, they ate the fruit, consumed the fruit, and then through, when an elephant looks like a flower pot, basically.
Yeah.
And in this flower pot were in the past the baobab seeds.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they could then survive because it was kind of in a full humus and perfect growing condition.
I saw people when they went into the bush taking their cooler boxes and then putting some elephant dung in the empty cooler boxes when they went back to put it in their garden because this is very good fertilizer.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You are the person to ask when somebody wants to hear this beautiful story about the baobab tree. You know, why it's looking so funny. Can you tell us that story?
So when God created the earth, he, of course, had to create the baobab tree as well. And so the baobab tree, when the baobab tree was created, realized that it is quite beautiful and realized that it should be more beautiful. So the baobab tree therefore went back to God and said, look, I want to be the most beautiful tree on earth, and therefore, please make my leaves more beautiful. And God did. However, after that, the baobab tree came back to God and said, look, I want to be the most beautiful tree on earth. Please make my flower the most stunning flower on earth. And God did. And so then the next was that the baobab tree came back to God and said, look, I want to be the most beautiful tree on earth. I would like to have the most smooth bark of all trees. And God did. However, after a while, God simply had enough of this baobab tree. And when the baobab tree came back with another request, God took the tree out of the earth and pushed it back upside down. And now it's the upside down tree with the roots on top.
That's a beautiful story.
Beautiful.
The upside down tree.
The upside down tree, yeah. Yeah. So we have here one upside down tree in Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's called the digitata. And then there are 7 more species. And they are all in Madagascar, on this small island next to us here. Yeah. So, and this is where it derived. And then
now I understand.
Yeah.
Because in my child's children book, it says baobab, something looks like a baobab in Madagascar. And I'm like, this is not right. This is in Zimbabwe, but that's
so
why.
In Madagascar, they have 7, they have all 8 species. We have 1 here in the rest of Africa. So all countries in Africa have the same baobab tree, digitata, and then or species. And in Madagascar, they have the other 7 as well. And in Madagascar, they look totally different. So here we know how a baobab tree looks like, and they have really totally different species, and their appearance is different, their taste is different. It's quite an interesting story. Yeah.
I think what everybody wants to know
is
the core of this is, coming to Zimbabwe as a German and now a German businessman. What would you say are the main things you have to be prepared for, or the main things that are different, or the main things you learned? Is there like a 1, 2, 3?
So my take is that the one thing is that when starting a business, the one thing is innovation. So find something which is unique and don't give up. So continue with it. So the thing is that the world is big enough, and there are so many different opportunities. So instead of doing the same and copying someone else, find something which is unique and develop it. And this, we did it with Baobab, we did it with other products as well. And this is beautiful because then you have started something new, and it gives benefit to absolutely everyone. In our case, to lots of rural communities. Even the baobab tree is, of course, more protected because it's now valued more. In the past, they sometimes chopped it down or used the bark, which is not particularly clever for a tree because diseases come in, etc. And now people look after the trees more. And all of this is innovation because, I came as an outsider, looked at this tree and thought, let me do something. Yeah, let me develop it. And there are so many different opportunities, and particularly here in Africa, where there's the continent of opportunities, where lots of activities are possible and very little is done for a variety of reasons, of resource shortages, etc. And so, as an entrepreneur, you need to innovate. So the worst thing is you start something which someone else has done already.
So number one is innovation.
Yes.
What is the second one you said?
Good partners. And so the
business partners.
Yeah, good, reliable business partners. You can not walk alone, of course. Yeah, if you start something, you need partners, and there find good partners. And find good partners you can really rely on, and where they have the right, they don't need to have the right business skills. Yeah, they need to have the right personality. Yeah, so that they carry you through in difficult times. Because of course, I mean, when you develop a business, there will be really hard times, etc. And then you need to have partners who develop it with you and care for you and structure things with you and simply develop a partnership. Yeah. So this is definitely another important part.
Strengthening partnerships.
Yes.
That's good partners. And is there a third one?
Resilience. Yeah. So the story is that when you start a business, you need to have a clear idea where you want to go, and you need to achieve this. You need to go straight there. And you need to be able to take some unexpected turns. So you need to be resilient and find your way and go where you want to go. However, you need to be able to listen. So you need to have 2 ears which are connected to your senses and brain and processing units, so that you hear what comes from outside, so that you can adjust during the phase of developing something. Listen, what is the new, what is needed now, and what are the questions which need to be answered, so that you don't work on a question which is not really a question for anyone else.
And do you think there's something particular in our German culture, because you are from Germany, I'm from Germany, that's maybe especially challenging when coming here?
So the one thing is, of course, that this is not a German thing per se, but it's from the area where I come from, Westfalen, where people are thick-headed. Yeah. So, which is basically being inflexible. Yeah. And this is not helpful. Yeah. So because you can then develop something. Yeah. However, you don't listen. Yeah. And this is very different here in Zimbabwe, where in Zimbabwe, the culture is to listen, and to listen very carefully. Yeah. And to listen more than speaking. Yeah, that is a culture here where people really listen and try to understand you. Yeah, and this is definitely something. I mean, we come from different parts. Yeah, and in my area, this very strong direction. This is definitely a building block of our identity of the Westphalians. So, and this can be a hindering factor. Yeah, and I appreciate this here in Zimbabwe, that there's a strong culture of listening, a strong culture of not being judgmental, a very open culture where people listen and try to understand.
I think that's very nice. I know from talking to you that there's a great diversity in plants here in plants in general. There's a great diversity, and there's a great diversity also in plants that are not developed yet.
Yeah.
Can you maybe, just out of interest, quickly describe what is the way? How do you make just a plant that you find there? How do you make it accessible for the market?
Yeah. So how we do it is you can have, of course, very different ways. Yeah. What we do is we first assess what happens if we humans start using this plant more than we use it today. So the reality is that absolutely everything here is used already by us humans. It's just that often it is the traditional healers, etc., who know about the plant and who use it. But look, there are how many hundreds of healers here? So it's not, and they use some grams per year. Yeah, so it's not that there's any danger, to over-harvesting. However, if we develop a plant, and I mentioned the Baobab fruit, we do thousands of tons of fruit. Yeah, so it's a big mountain. So if we develop something like this, what can be the environmental effect on the plant? So we need to assess this, and then we need to assess as well what is the economic effect for the rural communities. Yeah, because it can have a negative economic effect, of course. Yeah.
If I just make just a little comment on that, I know also that was very interesting with the Baobab tree because it's on communal land.
Yes.
Yeah, so you also, there's some agreements with the community, with the chief. It's not that it's on private property, and these trees are very old. So I think this is just an interesting social structure there that is foreign to us.
So and when you develop a plant, what you do is you give something which was always there, a resource which was always there. You give this resource suddenly a value. It had a value in the past, and now the value changes. And it had obviously sometimes a spiritual value, a health value, whatever. Yeah. And now it has an economic value, which it never had before. So therefore, totally new dynamics come in. So therefore, we need to assess the environmental effect by using this plant and developing this plant, the social effect by using it. So what happens with the community, and the economic effect. So has it, and we as Organic Africa, we make sure that it has a positive effect on the environment. So we have more trees afterwards. We protect the trees by using the trees. The social side, we bring the community more together by using this new resource. Yeah, and the economic effect is we give new resources and new income into the community by using this plant.
So you see what is the impact on nature, what is the economic impact, and then you probably have to go into some kind of laboratory.
Yeah.
Is that the next step?
So to assess what the potential of the product is.
Yeah.
So what we do there is, look, we are an SME, so we are. So we have a small laboratory, but our laboratory can do basic analysis on the quality of a product. However, when we develop something like Baobab, we then, of course, introduce it to other companies, and they then do their own tests, and they then assess what they can do with this product. And so we have to work with partners and to develop something new. And there you need to have a variety of different partners in cosmetic industry, in food industry, in a variety of applications, so that they can then with you develop a new product. Because when you identify a resource which is underutilized, which is the thing an entrepreneur needs to do, needs to identify
the gap,
the gap in the system, so that a new whatever computer system can be developed or a new plant developed. And so we, of course, concentrate on plants, and there we need to then find the right application. And so in Baobab, we concentrated on working with the food industry for the powder, concentrated on the working with the cosmetic industry on the oil, and concentrated with the tea industry on the funicles, and with the carbon credit market on the shells, which we produce into biochar and then enhance the soil through the biochar and the carbon credit.
Thank you. That was very thorough. Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Good. Thank you, Roma.
You know that I always wanted to bring out a lemonade that is not too sweet.
Good.
One made out of hibiscus, one made out of baobab, and the third one made out of mint.
Good. Let's do it.
Yay!
This would be...
How are we going to call it? That's all I can think about.
Roma, of course.
Yeah. What about aroma?
Aroma. Beautiful name. Beautiful. Yes.
At the end of every episode, I'm asking my guests if there's something they would describe is pure zimlove for them. So a proverb, a song, some kind of, maybe they met someone and that was, that meeting, what happened there is zimlove for them. Is there something that in your life that you would say describes the term of zimlove for you?
Well, I think there's a lot. So, because I'm really in love with this place, let me introduce one of the experiences here, just a moment. So a small moment. So my office where I often work is very close to our house. So I often walk back in between, lunch break, etc. And there, recently I walked back, and then there was a group of children coming from the local primary school, walking back to their houses, to their parents, and they saw me and crossed the road, came to me, and one of them just came up to me and hugged me, and that was on the way to lunch, and then they just smiled and continued walking. And I must admit that I lived very many years in Berlin, and it never happened there to me that anyone randomly hugged me with a big smile. Yeah, and this is definitely a Zimbabwean experience, and I'm very grateful for this.
It really can change your day, so yeah. I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.